Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think the session is timed at a very apt moment. It's the first session of the morning, and going by the kind of efforts that we've been trying to make and create over the last 7 years to really awaken this giant is pretty much going to be something that we are going to discuss. What we have today is pretty much a culmination of the entire industry that we've tried putting together. Representatives from various stakeholding units who essentially have been making efforts essentially to get this industry together and hopefully really achieve the kind of objectives and targets that India really deserves. So what we have today is pretty much a panel full of certain accomplished people. We have Mr. Kushal Das, who's the General Secretary, All India Football Federation. And one specific thing that happened with Mr. Das coming into the All India Football Federation system was essentially the whole professionalization of All India Football Federation that started. 2007 is when Mr. Sepp Blatter himself came to India and mentioned that the Indian football market is pretty much a giant that needs to be awakened. And that's where the efforts really started in terms of professionalizing the entire system. And that's where Mr. Das essentially became the first executive appointed person, General Secretary in the All India Football Federation. And since then, we've seen a series of efforts which have tried professionalizing the All India Football Federation. We have the industry perspective in form of Mr. Rajpal Singh. He is the Director Sports for Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. And what we've tried doing in last 5 years, and specifically with Mr. Rajpal's efforts, is really to get this industry together. And FICCI has been trying to represent the cause of the sports industry in general and football industry in particular. Certain initiatives that have gone into it is pretty much the formation of TURF, which is a sports summit, and Fiki-Gol, which is a very, very specific football convention, which by far has become the biggest one in India. We have Mr. Shunando Dhar. At one point of time, the I-League certainly was one property that was managed and completely controlled by the All India Football Federation. There was a serious need to get a lot more focus and create a separate division which could be professionalized and ultimately made a little more impactful. And that's where Shunando Dhar came in with his professional background and with that bit of responsibility where he had to give a lot more shape and a lot more focus to the National League of India. So that's where we have Shunando. Again, we'll speak to him about certain plans that he might have for the I-League while the whole new ISL is being conceptualized. We have Michael Chopra. We are waiting to welcome him to India, specifically Kerala. And again, everybody knows him, but it's going to be interesting times where not only Michael, but other legendary footballers like Del Piero, who are waiting to come down to India and participate in a new experiment that's happening. So we want to talk more about it. And last but not the least, we have Shirish Kulkarni. Again, a very passionate football enthusiast who also happens to be a very, very recognized businessman back in India, who brought together the infrastructural capabilities that his organization had to the passion that he had in order to create a setup which certainly would give a boost to the youth development projects in India. It was last year when Shirish, along with Liverpool Football Club, created a fully residential football academy back in India, which has seen some great growth. We're going to talk a lot more about a private investor's perspective on the efforts around development in Indian football with Shirish. So just to start off, I basically wanted to get Mr. Das's comments on certain key targets that the All India Football Federation is pretty much looking at. Again, going back to 2007, Mr. Das, when Mr. Blatter himself reinforced his commitment to the Indian Federation and helped to create a very solid structure. Since then, obviously, since 2010, you've been at the helm of the affairs, and we've seen certain great success stories. But over a next period of 1 decade or 10 years, are there any key initiatives that you are lining up for the Federation?
Thank you, Suki, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Yes, you're right. One of the things when we started off professionalizing Indian football was to look at what we should be doing in the next few years. Interestingly, we started off with our technical plan. We appointed, for the first time, a technical director. Indian football never had a technical director before. And we created a technical plan. But then we soon realized that to actually implement the technical plan, we did not have the resources. And therefore, we needed to develop a far more detailed plan called the strategic plan. And that's when I approached FIFA's performance team. And we worked together to create what is the strategic plan and also align the technical plan to the strategic plan. And I think we have done that quite successfully now. The plan is pretty much ready. It's a 4-year plan going all the way to the end of 2017 when we have the Under-17 World Cup. And the plan will be launched in the month of November in the presence of Jerome Walke. And we are very confident that with this plan, which is a fairly detailed plan in terms of what our vision, mission, values, and objectives are, the goals, which each department has to achieve in the next few years, and which has been drilled down into a detailed operational plan with budgets. So it's a plan which is sustainable, because we ultimately need a plan which can be implemented, which is sustainable. And I hope this plan would go a long way in helping professionalize Indian football and also help us achieve our objectives.
Right. So, Mr. Das, again, I've seen very closely, the challenges that certainly emerge in a developing footballing market like India. But we certainly have quite obvious challenges around infrastructure, and certain levels we don't really have that bit of expertise available in India in order to kind of really promote certain projects. So how difficult or how easy has it been in last 5 years for you to really kind of drive home certain changes that you're wishing to make?
It has not been easy for sure. We all know the problems or the challenges of Indian football. There's lack of money, there's lack of visibility, lack of infrastructure, and even a lack of proper youth development plans, so that we have not been able to develop iconic players in the last few years. So the challenges have been quite big, but I think we are slowly overcoming those challenges. And with this new league coming up, the ISL, which I know everyone is quite interested to hear about, I think it is helping us bringing back those in kind of mitigating these challenges. There's going to be money now in Indian football. There are lots of investors coming in, both from the ISL franchisee, new ISL franchisee clubs, as well as the new entrants to the I-League, which are big corporate houses. There's visibility, of course. I think the ISL is creating the kind of interest which was required for Indian football. There's a lot of emphasis on developing the infrastructure. The ISL itself is also helping in creating the infrastructure, and we are also working with the government to improve the infrastructure for the Under-17 World Cup. And of course, the development aspect, which is probably the most important, is something which has been, which is a strong priority for the federation. The ISL clubs have a strong obligation towards grassroots and youth development. And the I-League, of course, the enforcing the licensing criteria has created this a strong obligation on them, again, to work on youth development and grassroots development. So all in all, I think we are moving in the right direction, and I think it's a great time to be in Indian football.
So, Mr. Das, I'm certainly going to come back to you to talk a little more about two aspects of next 3 years plan. One is pretty much the Under-17 World Cup, and how do we really utilize the ISL to further the profile of the sport in the country. But before that, I certainly want to get the voice of the industry, which is FICCI, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industries, to essentially talk about what they really have been able to achieve in last 5 years, specific on the sports sector. Just for everybody's awareness, FICCI represents around 55 to 60 different sectors, right from retailing, mining, manufacturing. And it was 5 to 6 years back when they essentially realized that sports with such huge opportunity back in India was certainly not being represented. To a lot of people's surprise, we still don't have the industry status for sports in the country, leave alone football. So how has it really been in terms of your objectives that you wanted to achieve for sports sector, and what would be pretty much your plans going forward?
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. I mean, just to mention that, and correction a little bit, I mean, so we started our sports division in 2000, long back, but you know, from the government side, from the federation side, and even from the industry side, lots of people had questions, and they used to ask, what is the role of FICCI in sports? And that exactly was the, you know, challenge initially. So we said, you know, we took a different route, and we said, you know, we started representing first the manufacturing sector, which is basically industry. So we said, look, these are the issues, tax issues, benefits issues, fiscal issues. So we started working with that. Slowly and slowly, we started talking about federations and policy initiatives and all these things. But real thrust came in 2006 when, you know, there were lots of preparation of the Commonwealth Games. And Commonwealth Games, people started talking about infrastructure, good infrastructure. People started talking about legacy. And legacy, when we talk about legacy, public-private partnership come into picture. Legacy word was very new to industry and to the government. So initially, you know, if you see sports sector in India, it's not a recognized sector. It's not a priority sector, whether it is from the government side or parent side or from the institution side. Everybody think that sports is just a sports and extracurricular activities, and it has nothing to do with, you know, career opportunity or business or anything else. And that was the challenge. Again, so we started working with, you know, within the industry and all these things. What we saw, that when we started talking to government, we saw there was a huge deficit of information, right information, I would say. So information was available. I don't know, I mean, you may be aware that cricket is the biggest game in terms of visibility, in terms of business. But surprisingly, if you go into detail, the most played game and most famous game, I would say, in terms of practical aspect, not in terms of business, is football. I mean, I actually don't find any people who haven't played football, whether it is a school level or college level or in the community level. So it was very surprising. I mean, although football played by largest people, but it's still not a very recognized sports.
So is it fair to say, Mr. Rajpal, that it certainly was, the industry was not really structured and you know, not represented well when it comes to these numbers and these data that you're talking about?
I would say like industry was not aware. Secondly, from the government side also, I mean, they never saw industry role in this, you know, sports. They always used to see that industry role is just sponsoring, you know, and sponsoring in what sense? Sponsoring as a CSR activity. So you give money, but don't ask for return. So don't ask for return, don't ask for the visibility, don't ask for anything else. And they used to feel that this is the role of the industry. But, you know, over the period, I would say, I mean, some of the federations have changed a lot. I can vouch, I mean, Mr. Das is here. We have around 4 or 5 federations at least, and All India Football Federation is one of the most structured, active, transparent body which is working hard. Although our ranking is, you know, quite low, but I'm sure, I mean, in future we will develop a lot, because the kind of development work are going on at the grassroots level to the, you know, senior level. It's fantastic.
Certainly very heartening to hear that. Also, just staying on the industry's level of confidence, Mr. Rajpal, I think quite a few years back, when again, there were these conversations with corporates and the industry, certainly they used to have, a clear-cut indication at the rankings, and somewhere or the other, even the profiling of football and the football properties was certainly not there. Has it changed, really? After again, listening to all the excitement that's been created, Under-17 World Cup is certainly going to be a bigger one, which we don't even kind of seriously realize.
No, frankly speaking, I would say that ranking is an issue. But at the same time, people started realizing that ranking is one side. I mean, you have a player game like Kabaddi, which is coming up in a big manner. You have other similar kind of game which are coming up. So football is something which is international, recognized sports, and coming up, and huge visibility. Only thing is, as of now, our fan base is for the international football rather than our domestic football. If we can, tackle this challenge, I'm sure, football will be one of the best visible sports in India.
At this juncture, I want to bring in Shunando, who always somehow finds himself on the hot seat, somehow in a spot every time. So, Shunando, obviously, you've really put a lot of efforts behind what you've been able to create of the I-League and the erstwhile National Football League. Again, a situation where there are new entrants in the league who are coming in, and somewhere or the other, thanks to the AFC licensing criteria, there's been certain positive growth. So where is it really? You have the responsibility of building the I-League. So how has it been so far? And with the whole excitement and noise around ISL, where does I-League kind of really fit in?
Thanks, Suki. Firstly, it's great to be here back in Manchester and Soccerex. Well, about I-League, I guess when we took over and we came into I-League, the main point was to professionalize the setup, professionalize the clubs, and run the league in a way that would develop Indian football, which wasn't happening at one point of time, and clubs were not focusing enough on grassroots youth development, infrastructure, fan base. So we wanted that to happen, and the first thing that we did was obviously adopt the licensing criteria. The club licensing criteria, which obviously was designed by FIFA, taken by AFC, and we adopted that. And we have put a lot of emphasis on the licensing criteria. At one point of time, I guess the clubs, when we introduced it, they thought it was an additional burden on them. But now I think they have realized, and what they have done is right, is that the licensing criteria is something which is, they're getting benefit out of it. And they're investing not only on the present team, but for the future, on youth, on grassroots, on infrastructure, on fan development. And they're getting the returns. It's coming in slowly, but they have realized that more they concentrate on this, it'll be better for them. And obviously, we've got a lot of support from AIFF, from our president, from General Secretary, about implementation of grassroots development program, about implementation of the club licensing program. And we don't want to compromise on that. We have already taken action against clubs which haven't fulfilled the licensing. We have taken out 3-4 clubs this year, which wasn't very easy. These clubs have been there with us for 20, 30, 40 years. But we had to draw the line somewhere. And unfortunately, in spite of our efforts, in spite of trying and helping them, these clubs failed in the licensing, and we had to take them out. So that was one of the points. Another thing was how to bring in new clubs, how to bring in professional entities into the system, and trying to bring in teams from new places. And so that process started last year. We brought in Bengaluru FC directly into I-League, backed by a corporate giant, passionate about football. And as luck would have it, obviously a lot of credit should go to Bengaluru FC because of the work that they did on and off the ground. I think they were fantastic. And Bengaluru became the I-League champions first year. And that gave us the confidence, the belief that we are on the right way, and we should try and replicate that and try and get more such teams every year without compromising on the quality or the criteria that we have set. Other than the licensing criteria, we wanted these new teams, as Mr. Das said, we lacked big time in infrastructure and youth development. So we wanted these new teams to contribute in infrastructure, try and build a stadium, refurbish an existing stadium, and earmark a specific amount to set up an academy. And I guess the youth development system has to originate through the clubs, which wasn't happening, but now it's started. And hopefully we can take this forward, and in years to come we might have more such corporates, whether from India or outside, coming in. Last year it was Bengaluru FC through JSW. This year we have got Kalyani Group, which is another big group. So it's good to see that the industry is taking up the cause of football, and the passion, the interest is there, and hopefully we can take it forward.
So a lot of work really went in below the radar, and again, I understand how difficult it would have been to really bite the bullet and actually let go of 4 clubs while not being sure in terms of the newer clubs kind of coming in.
Right.
So somewhere or the other, with that bit of work, and I've seen the team that works within the I-League department, with that bit of work, and when you really compare it with the attention that's pretty much going towards ISL, so is it pretty much a step-brotherly feeling that you get certain times?
I wouldn't say that. Means ISL, as and when it was conceptualized, obviously with AIFF, I think it was done to bring in that extra attention, glamour, and the money into Indian football, which we are seeing. Means I think last month or so, the amount of write-ups on media in India and I guess worldwide on Indian football has not been seen in recent past, and that the credit has to go to ISL for that. And I guess that attention, it'll have a trickle-down effect in all football activities, and I'm sure that'll benefit I-League, that'll benefit other Indian football properties. So it's kind of a mutual, it's not a step-brotherly or that we are competing against each other. We are trying to work, all of us together, to take Indian football to another level. And as we say, we are at the crossroads, so we are trying out new things. And one of the things that we tried out last year about bringing in direct entries into I-League through corporates, through franchises, that was one step. I think that was one of the right things. ISL and bringing in these new franchisees, bringing the star attractions, the film stars, the cricketers, and obviously the foreign players, the known players like Michael coming into, obviously that'll have football will be discussed more, and that can only be good for Indian football.
Right. Shunanda, I'm certainly going to come back to you for getting your views, which might be a lot more relevant to the gathering over here, and what could be the proposition that I-League really offers, which they've already offered to Bengaluru FC and Kalyani. That's why they had the confidence to kind of come in. Is there an opportunity for a larger stakeholder from global football to come in and get aligned with I-League? I'm going to come back to you. But before that, if I can just get to understand from Mr. Shirish Kulkarni, everybody knows about your passion for Liverpool, but I'm sure beyond the passion, there was certainly a lot of strategy and a lot of thinking that went into before you decided to commit yourself not to really an ISL, I-League, but a youth development setup which is pretty much backed by state-of-the-art infrastructure. So what really happened in last couple of years when you were thinking about your next level of involvement in football?
Well, to begin with, it was so that football in India was struggling in a way. I mean, we had a few teams which were there for a very long time, but the professionalism in terms of the structuring, as pointed out by Sunanda earlier, wasn't existing. Slowly it started coming in, but still the glamour quotient wasn't there. And myself, I thought that, well, if we are to actually go ahead and do this, we need a very strong base. We need certain systems and, a couple of ethics that needs to go into the game, which of course exist in Europe. So why not have a partner like Liverpool who can actually give us, because 100+ years of experience definitely speaks for itself, that what they could offer you. So that's basically how, or rather why I decided to go into an academy setup. So my focus was on the youth setup, and I personally decided, or rather my well, it's my understanding that if today we are able to develop the youth of the nation, tomorrow they're going to become much better footballers, because the infrastructure needed for that, unfortunately, is not coming from anywhere. Now, I-League and ISL, this year onwards, they've started the licensing criteria, and they're putting their foot down and making sure that the clubs actually do it. But it's just beginning now. So I think it's the right time that everybody is doing the same thing. So the story so far, as I think, well, it's been there already, that youth setup is going to be the most critical component for football in India. Although corporates like us are coming across and in various ways supporting the game, 2 new I-League clubs, we've got 8 ISL teams pumping in a lot of money. But again, if it is not backed very well by the youth system, it's not going to sustain. So I think my belief is that, well, I being there, and I would maybe want more and more corporates, and as you pointed out earlier, that maybe somebody from global football to come into India to maybe partner with local people and try to get the academy set up, youth setups, right up to the age group of under 8s and under 9s, where that's where they matter, because some of the world's best footballers are signed at that age. So that's the vision that a coach or an academy setup would have towards footballers. So that's what is important, and I think the story now that's going to be with me is, yes, focusing greatly on youth football, and that's the way I want to go and get attached to the ISL, to the I-League.
So just picking on the case study of Pune City, which essentially till 5 years back, nobody knew it for football except certain sporting heroes that the city had. But there seems to be a big shift from Bengal, which certainly is the mecca of football and even now enjoys that bit of status, to Goa and suddenly Pune, not even Bombay for that matter, Shirish. So are we really seeing certain changes that we never envisioned? Or is it that the power center of football needs to kind of diversify a little more for benefit of Indian football?
Look, I believe that India it's a very big country. It changes literally at every 100 kilometers. So you move across the country, you realize the kind of difference in terms of culture, language, food. There's so many things. So it cannot be one place which is like a powerhouse, or can be a controlling center. It is going to be divided, and Pune particularly, always being the industrial hub. You've got almost 7 or 8 manufacturers, auto manufacturers over there. One of the largest forging companies in the world is present in Pune. So that kind of financial power that the city has, and of course you can call it a suburb of Mumbai, which is the financial capital of India, it has its own advantages. Now, land is available, couple of, I would rather say a lot of untapped pockets in the city which were available. So I think that's the reason why Pune suddenly in the last 5 years has shown that bit of increase. The kind of people who have come into football, or the ideas that are there, even the quality of players, the understanding towards the game. Because I think I was reading a report which said that in India the typical football follower is well-to-do or of the middle class. So lower down the line there still isn't that connect, which of course will grow as we go further. And Pune, Mumbai, cities like that have that kind of crowd already present. The population is vast, and a large number of them are from that category itself. So I think that's one of the major reasons why Pune has become, you can call it a football hub now, or a sports hub even. We've got one of the best cricket stadiums also, which has come up in just the past 2 or 3 years. And football is growing. We've got 2 I-League teams, 1 ISL team, and hopefully another one can come in there. So we still have space. So, but I don't think it's a shift from Bengal. Bengal will remain. Goa will remain. You know, the passion will not die. It's good that a city like Pune is coming up with you know, with this sort of a structure or these opportunities, because that gives football in general an opportunity to increase its fan base. With 1 billion people in the country, I think you can just imagine the kind of opportunity that the game has.
Point very well made, Shirish. And that's where, I mean, a lot of conversations that we keep on having with, again, our friends from global football who certain times just fly into Delhi, have a few meetings, go to Bombay, have a few meetings, and 5 months later, they are disillusioned. They still wonder what really happened to all the conversations that happened 5 months back. And obviously all the opportunities which looked very promising at one point of time did not materialize. Just a word of suggestion, honestly, while we are looking at football industry as such, in last few years there have been emergence of newer markets, Pune being one of them. There's been a Bengaluru FC which has come up in a city in South India. There's a city called Shillong, which has 2 clubs now, known clubs, which has done fantastically well. 35,000 people coming in to watch their home games. So there are pretty much these pockets which are unexploited. But again, a word of suggestion, as I said, a lot of our friends who kind of come in and face that bit of disillusionment can actually look at some other pockets which are a lot more resourceful, easier to work, and somewhere or the other, the kind of impact that could be created is a lot higher. I remember very recently, our friends from here got Hoffenheim from Germany to travel to a place called Mizoram, which is pretty much a hotbed of football, has supplied a lot of players to the Indian team as well as the I-League clubs, but somewhere or the other never had that bit of recognition. So I think these ideas have started kind of taking shape right now. Mr. Michael Chopra, you have scored a few goals against David James, and so obviously he's looking forward to welcome you in Kerala. So where did it really start, the whole interest? Again, knowing that beyond 150, the ranks don't really kind of talk much. Plus the information, whatever is available on the infrastructure, which is very, very basic. So again, you know, the whole bit of adventure, the thought, where did it really start for you to even think about ISL?
I think my main idea was to go to India and play in the I-League. Obviously, I've played in England for 13 years now, and I wanted to have a new challenge. And playing in India was one of them challenges that I wanted to do. Obviously, with my dad's family from being over in India, I wanted to show them a bit of support and show the people that have followed me in India. So I spoke to the manager at Bangalore, Ashley Westwood, and he was interested in taking me. And then I got a phone call a couple of days later from SME, my agency. They had said, would I be interested in joining the Super League? And I said, why did you even ask me that? Of course I would love to. And he said, okay, we'll try and do stuff about it. Obviously there was a lot to do and stuff going on in the background, because there's been talk about the Super League going on for the last 3 years. And eventually it's happened, and it's a pleasure to be a part of it. I spoke to David James just before the draft, and he was asking me questions, what my plans were in India, why I wanted to go. And he said that if they managed to get first pick, they would pick me. And we had a laugh and a joke about when I played for Ipswich against Bristol City, when he was playing for Bristol City, and I managed to score 2 goals against him. So that was nice. And so it just came from then, really. And I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning, sitting on my laptop, just watching the draft and watching my name come out of the pick.
Great. So very specifically from the ISL project, what would be pretty much 2-3 benchmarks that you would certainly want the new experiment, the new property to really achieve in terms of, for you to it really mean success? What would be those maybe top 2-3 things that you would want to happen within this project?
I think the main thing is to try and boost the football in India. There's 1.2 billion people in the country, and there's not many people out there playing football. Cricket's the biggest sport out there, and I want to be part of making football a legacy out there. And and improving it and improving the grassroots and the youth setup out there as well. Because why can't all these young kids not make it at football? Why is it they don't? When I was growing up as a boy, my hero was Alan Shearer. I want to go out in India and I want them to say my hero is Michael Chopra.
That's a great thought. That's a great thought. Mr. Das, just coming back to you, again, while the ISL topic is pretty much relevant to today's discussion, from AIFF perspective, you did mention about the profiling bit of it, but somewhere or the other, the 8 investors who really believed in the potential of Indian football and this particular project, what are the key factors you believe should certainly be achieved in the next 2 to 5 years? Be it profitability for these investors, or is it really the viewership, on-ground attendance, or is there something else that you would want them to go beyond and do it?
I spoke to most of the owners, in fact all of them, and the profit and loss account or the revenue statement is not at all in their perspective right now. All they care about is development of Indian football, and the money, they know they can't make the money. It's not in the next 5 years. In fact, Indian football, it's probably difficult to make money in the next 5 years, but the potential is so huge that you have to forget the profit and loss account for some time and concentrate on the real thing, which is the development of football in India. So in that sense, I feel very optimistic that with these 8 franchisees coming in, as well as the new I-League teams, who are also, who again have complete disregard for the profit and loss account, and their only focus is development. I think it's a great time for Indian football, as I keep mentioning. And I do believe that the giant has actually woken up now, sitting on bed and waiting for the right moment to get out of bed and conquer the world.
Maybe a nice cup of chai will help. Mr. Das, another thing, specifically on the under-17 FIFA World Cup 2017 preparations, what are the key targets? Because I do believe that, the work has already started, but then time is something that we don't have a luxury with. So what are the key steps that are being kind of...
There are essentially 2 aspects to it. One is, of course, the organizational aspect, which is getting in place the infrastructure, the training grounds, which is still a huge challenge. We are working with the government to do that. But more importantly, there is another aspect which I think is a critical factor, and that is the technical side, creating a competitive under-17 Indian team, galvanizing the youth of India to watch Indian football, and that is something which we are focusing on quite a bit right now. We are in the process of scouting 60 of the best boys for specific academies for the Under-17 World Cup. We would want them to go for exposure trips throughout the world. We have already kind of tied up with an MOU with a Brazilian club, Atlético Paranaense, and we are hoping to tie up more such MOUs with other clubs and academies in Europe, Asia, Africa, because we feel that the team must get exposure all over the world and understand how football is played in different parts of the world, the thinking, the mentality, the physique required. So that is something which we are concentrating on, and we hope that this sort of if we are able to create a good competitive under-17 Indian team, it will change the face of Indian football, the interest levels. We think that we must get the youth involved here. We would be focusing on getting the school children into the stadiums, try and create some icons, under-17 icons, and as I keep repeating, make it the game changer for Indian football.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Rajpal, understanding that there's a convention called Fiki-Gol that was conceptualized and implemented very, very successfully. So what are the plans really with that property? And while sitting in front of the global audiences, do you want kind of them to at least come over, just get to know a lot more about it?
Before talking about next goal, which is happening in February 2015, I would just like to raise some of the things which are happening in India. One is the policy initiatives. Skill is a big sector which is coming up in India. Government of India has, in principle, agreed to set up sector skill council in sports, physical education, fitness, and leisure sports. In a sense, if we see the overall kind of demand we have in India is almost 4.3 million experts in India in different sports. If I come specific to the football, we have almost 1.3 million people we need, at different level experts in sports, in football. If I tell you about some of the figures, sports, science and technology in football, we need 368,000 people. Sports medicine, we need 106,000 people. Sports broadcasting, 56,000 people. Sports grassroots, sports facilities, sports management. So these are some of the experts we need within sports. So this is apart from what we need infrastructure demand. We need leagues at different level. ISL and I-League have been at the national level. But we have opportunity in school level league, we have state level league. So some of the states are very active in leagues, but not about actually. So apart from the policy initiatives, what we want to discuss in goal, we also would like to discuss now more about the business opportunity around the sports, and especially about football, because this is a very specific and largest platform to discuss about business of football. So this is, we have already started working on it. We are in touch with All India Football Federation, blessing of All India Football Federation. Government of India is supporting it. So these are, we are very hopeful that this will be one of the best football event, which is Gold 2015.
Fantastic. And that's, I think, happening in February 2015.
Yes.
The next edition. So there's enough information available on the FICCI websites in case that there's any interest. Shunanda, just coming back to you. Great experiments with Bengaluru FC and now Kalyani Group showing that bit of interest. Do you believe that there are these potential investors sitting right here or in this part of the world who would then want to look at I-League as a possible investment opportunity? And what would be your proposition to them?
Yeah, I would obviously like to believe that. In the past 12 months or so, we have had discussions with foreign clubs and foreign institutes about coming into India and either owning a team or being part of it. We have seen that with few clubs in ISL, and I believe that I-League would also have an opportunity there. And as I said, we've had discussions with clubs based in England who have shown interest to be part of the I-League. And I think it will be a matter of time when that will happen. And there have been instances where English clubs have set up their offices in foreign countries. So I don't see why it shouldn't happen in India. And I would believe that there is a lot of interest, and we are more than welcome to have further discussions on that.
Great. Shirish, just to get your comments, again, the I-League versus ISL, there's enough of discussion, debate that has happened. What's your perspective really on this? Because you're pretty much in a situation where you committed yourself to the youth development side of it, believing that it's very important and certainly needed. What's your really perspective? If I ask you to choose between participating in I-League or an ISL, so what would that be?
It's a tough question to be honest, okay, because I-League is a slightly cheaper proposition. So, well, if you look at a financial aspect, I would definitely go into the I-League. Another reason is that the I-League has a different status altogether in world football as well. Unfortunately, ISL at this point does not enjoy such a thing. But if you look at the glamour component, and if you look at the kind of attention that the ISL is going to get for any corporate, or especially for people who, like the owners were there, like the film stars and cricketers, it's a great platform for them. They know what they're doing. They know that the money is going to, it's going to take much longer than the I-League to come out of it. Probably, never come out of it, depending on how things shape up. But the reason why they're doing it is pretty evident, that the face value of the league, of the teams, the players coming in, like Michael's coming in. So it's just going to add, it's going to be a big noise, and it's the best place to be at that point of time. So if it's really a hard question to answer, because I think I would rather keep my options open and to see how both these platforms develop, and whichever becomes better, we'll be a part of it. That's about it.
Right. Michael, we've heard your discussions on academies. That is something that you would want to promote and develop. And now, with your interest in India and participation in the ISL, is it something that you're looking forward to, knowing that good academies are needed back in India?
Yeah, good academies are needed in India. There's not enough young players coming through. And once I get over there and play in the ISL and hopefully in the I-League, then one of my main objectives after that is to open up my own academy over there and try and, like I said before, to try and promote young players and help the grassroots and things like that. It's been my desire to do that and to help the nation climb up the ranks. I know they're 150th at the minute, and I want to help them to get into the top 100.
Great. So there has been certain very strong academies, including an academy called Tata Football Academy, which till very recent times has contributed almost 50% to 70% of the Indian national team players. That is pretty much an institutional academy, very, very active, but somewhere or the other might be losing that bit of relevance when the I-League clubs as well as the ISL clubs are kind of trying to create their own setups. And then you have a very resourceful group like Vedanta Resources, which is running an academy under the banner of CESA. A group of companies is called CESA Football Academy, and there have been great initiatives, but somewhere or the other they always had a little orientation to CSR. But with again the new ideas and new thoughts that are being developed, I think there is that bit of private participation and a lot more long-term and sustainable thinking that's kind of going in. But interesting times for us. Before we wrap up the session and open the floor for questions, I certainly want to recognize the participation of a huge Indian delegation. You need to certainly understand that we are a huge country, so even a small little percentage that we managed to kind of get here is a huge number. But we have various organizations who have started participating in the process of football development who are here, which includes the Government of India, which includes the Sports Authority of India, and we have Mr. A.K. Patro, Under Secretary, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, who's pretty much present here. And we have representation obviously from FICCI, we have from DSK Group, we have Baichung Bhutia Football School, which is very, very active, and some representation from there. We have a couple of international delegates who've joined us just to kind of really understand the whole process that we are undergoing. We again have people who have been very, very active in youth development side. There is an organization called IYSA who are present over here. And we again have quite a few people who have started looking at football as a very serious project for themselves, who are pretty much here. So they are pretty much here. We are at the stall number 254, which is at the exhibition space. In case any of you want to have any kind of interaction, you can direct yourself there. I just need to check with Adrian how much time we have for the questions. All right, so we'll take a few questions. If you can just raise your hand, identify yourself, and direct your question to one of the panelists. The gentleman in the third row. Can we have the mic for him, please?
Hi. I think we'd all very much like to see this project succeed in India and promote a greater base of football in Asia. But one of the questions I would have would be, what steps are the panel taking to make sure that at the same time that we see growth throughout India within football, that it is promoted as being something which is, along the lines of what's been done by the cricket authorities to make sure that everything's done in a very transparent way, and that players are protected from any external forces within the gambling markets because of the state within India of gambling, full stop. And how do they intend to monitor that going forward without necessarily having the information from the gambling markets, which are normally shown as the first indicator of any misdemeanors.
So essentially, to kind of protect the sanctity of the sport, and
Exactly.
who do you want?
Well, I'm not sure who would be the most qualified to comment on that.
I think I'll try and answer your question. In the last 1 month or so, the AIFF has appointed an integrity officer. We have actually tied up with FIFA to find out ways to protect the game. We realize the challenges, the risks. We are in the process of signing up and doing an MOU with early warning system, so that we have some information of the betting patterns, because betting is not legal in India. Therefore, we need to understand, and we know for a fact that there is a huge amount of betting which goes on for some of the I-League games, some of the local league games even. So we are taking steps. We are putting in place anti-corruption regulations, so to say, which will be applicable for both the ISL and the I-League. And we are working closely with FIFA on that. So there are steps being taken to ensure that the game is protected.
Mr. Das, can I just add on to more from the player perspective? In the last few years, we've actually realized even the I-League, to be fair to the I-League, has gotten some fantastic players, including somebody like Rohan Ricketts, who actually came and played for Dempo. We had 3 World Cup players who are plying their trade and who have plied their trade back in the I-League. So what has it really done? It has actually brought in a lot of information, knowledge, and to a great level best practices into the system. So somewhere or the other, this is something that I claim very, very proudly, that India might look a little complicated and difficult, but once you start kind of understanding and once you really start kind of focusing a lot more on that, it can give you some results, and it can adapt and it can adopt a lot of newer ideas very, very quickly. And this is pretty much to do with, yes, protecting the sanctity of the game. We have immense amount of knowledge which has been transferred or which has been borrowed now from the developing footballing nations, and that has really helped us a lot, including an example of players. They've actually come in and said the right things and taught us the right things, so which I think is helping us. Yes, sir.
Here, I just want to mention, we must differentiate between betting and also in fixing. So, in India, unfortunately, because betting is not allowed, so fixing is very easy. So once you fix it, then you can gain out of super normal profit out of betting. So that is why, in fact, FICCI has been very vocal about this, and first organization to start that we must recognize and legalize betting in India. Idea is same, that independent body regulating this, providing all kind of rules and regulation of betting, so that underworld cannot play dirty game in the games. So that exactly is, talking. Government of India is coming out with a law called Sports Fraud Act. Hopefully, they will be, highlighting this issue in that act.
Can you have the? I think we've been very, very articulate in terms of what we said. So,
There. So you got that.
oh, sorry, the gentleman.
Hello.
Can you take the mic, please?
Thank you. Mr. Lopez from Mexico. I have a couple of questions. Question number one. First of all, congratulations. I hope it's going to be a very good league. And my first question is the competition system. In America, we play 2 tournaments, almost in all South America and also in Mexico. We play 2 tournaments a year. we call apertura and clausura, opening and closing season. And the first question is that which kind of tournament you're going to play? The competition system.
Shunandu?
So you're talking about what's the format of the tournament?
The format of the tournament, yes.
I guess if you're talking about I-League, it's both the tournaments would be on home and away. I-League also and ISL also, home and away. ISL, the only difference between I-League would be after the home and away, the 8 franchises play on home and away. The top 4 will play the semi-finals and then the final. But the I-League, like any other league, it's on home and away, and the highest points get the winners. So that's the only difference.
Okay, thank you. And the second one, how many foreigners players you are going to allow?
In I-League, we allow 4 foreigners per team. But ISL, the number of foreigners would be more. At the start of the ISL, we wanted more recognized names to come in and maybe try and help Indian football. So the number of foreigners would be 6 or 7. But I-League, since the I-League clubs play in Asia, the champions of I-League, and they allow only 4 foreigners in a team. So that's the same rule we follow in I-League, 4 foreigners in a team.
Thank you.
There's an interesting regulation with I-League in particular. It's 4+1. So, 3+1. So 3 foreigners from any particular nationality and 1 Asian. That's where we actually have realized that there have been some fantastic Asian players who started kind of coming into the country, and they have contributed immensely, in particular Japan.
And I think one more thing that we are introducing this year, that one of the 4 foreigners has to be a marquee player. So marquee player who's played in the World Cup or Continental Championships. So we're trying to, make the quality of players, the foreign players, better. And I think, obviously, as you mentioned, I think the quality of foreign players have gone up in the last 2-3 years, but we want to further improve them. So we have added that one of the 4 foreigners has to be a marquee player. Our technical director, the technical department would have to certify that marquee player, but it has to be someone who's played in the World Cup or the top leagues. And so basically he comes with his experience and improves the team and the teammates. That's the whole idea, yeah.
So, yeah, I think this brings us to end of a wonderful session. Thank you all my panelists. You've been fantastic. I think, again, the thoughts that you shared would be very, very relevant to the audiences who came here and attended. And by the numbers, we certainly do understand there's immense bit of interest. As I mentioned, there's a huge delegation from India who's already present. There might be relevant business opportunities, there might be relevant synergies that could be explored. Before we really wind up, a small formality. We have developed a knowledge report along with FICCI and All India Football Federation, which we are going to release now. You certainly can find the copies of this report at the stall, or on request it can be emailed to you as well. I would just request Mr. Patro to join us just to officially and formally release this report and give us an opportunity for a nice picture. Please, sir.
Come, Patro.
You have more copies?